Before I start this podcast, I do want to apologize for being absent over summer break. I did want to take some time away from the podcast. And also sorry for this episode coming out about a week and a half late. I was a bit busy with school starting and all of that. But yeah, enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome to AFcast. I am your host Malcolm, and today I am going to be talking about the video game Control. So to start us off, the developer is Remedy Entertainment, which are the same people who made Quantum Break. Not to mention that the star actor in this also played Beth Wilder in Quantum Break and is now known as Jessie Faden, and we'll talk about her in a second. The publisher was 505 Games, and it is available for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One at the moment. I think it's coming out on PC. If it hasn't already, I'm not entirely sure about that. And then the composer of the game is Martin Stig Anderson, and I will say that the soundtrack is really good. It really fits the theme of the game. Not even just the theme, just the feel of it overall. This game is also an open-world action-adventure video game, and the really cool thing about this that is completely different than any other open-world game I've played is that it's all indoor. It's completely just one giant building that you get to roam pretty much completely free in, and yeah, it's actually, it doesn't sound good at first, and I didn't know that it was that way until I thought this was a linear style video game, but no, this is open world inside of a massive building, and it is awesome. Like, it is actually really fun. I wouldn't have thought that would be good if I heard that before I played the game. So kind of to get into the story of it, the game deals in the paranormal and is based in a federal building called the Federal Bureau of Control. And you are playing the character Jessie Faden, like I mentioned earlier. She is from a town called Ordinary, and apparently Ordinary was ground zero for a massive event of paranormal activity. And when that paranormal event happened, she ended up getting this being in her head that allows her to do and harness certain things, which you will discover as you play the story. I'm not going to give it away because I don't want to give away too much of the story. I'm just going to be I will be giving little bits and pieces of about the first 2 hours of the game, but I won't be giving you everything from those first 2 hours. So essentially, that being helped her find this Bureau of Control, and Jessie even ends up becoming the director not long into the game, pretty much within the first 15 minutes, really. And so then everything is based off of you being the director. And over time, you start unraveling the mystery of an enemy known as the Hiss, which have infiltrated and started infecting the Bureau of Control. And the Hiss is essentially, it's a paranormal infection that takes hosts into their control. Not only that, but it can affect objects, causing them to be twisted and out of shape. And you can usually tell when there's really big areas of infection of the Hiss is when it is a deep red color. And that's how you know that part is really infected by the Hiss. So same thing with people's auras that are against you. They will also be red. So yeah. And not long into the game, you actually do save a group of survivors that will help you out, and you will discover more over time as well. But the person that was one of the higher-ups, named Emily Pope, she mainly helps you along your journey of understanding what is happening in the game, as your character is completely new to this place. So essentially, she helps her just, like I said, understand what the hell is happening, because obviously your character doesn't know what's happening entirely, at least, and you as the player don't know what's happening. So it's a good information give from this person, but there are still a lot of gaps in it, which can be kind of So you do have to play pretty far into the story in order to fill some of those in, which can somewhat cause you to lose interest at times. But yeah, besides all that, there is something called the objects of powers, or an object of power that you will discover, and you'll discover more of these over time. And each of these do a unique thing. So one of them is called the oldest house, which is actually the building that you are in. And apparently it has the ability to only be seen by the people who want to find it. So, there you go. Another thing is the first item that you actually get in the game, which is a service weapon. This is essentially just a pistol that will auto-reload, and you are able to modify it later on in the game. Another thing that you will get pretty early on is a floppy disk, which allows you to get telekinetic powers, which is awesome. And there's also the hotline, which allows you to contact different planes of existence or different astral planes as well. I don't know if those are the same things. I don't look up that type of stuff, so no idea. And another one that you'll get pretty early on, if you can find it, is the carousel horse, which basically allows you to do a type of evade maneuver. So, there you go. And eventually throughout the story, about an hour and a half into the game, I'll say, you'll start doing work for a janitor, which you meet right at the beginning of the game. And although this might sound boring, this character is a very interesting character. I'm still not entirely sure, like, kind of what or who he is or anything like that. But it's this really creepy guy that gives you tasks to do, essentially, in order to actually maintain the oldest house. And these are important jobs to do, and they are actually pretty fun to do. It doesn't feel like a boring old chore that you have to complete in the game. It does feel relevant to the story, which is not what most games do when they have something kind of like this. So, yeah. So onto the gameplay before I give too much for the story. You will be slowly building your character to be more powerful, which is like you using the objects of powers, and you can also upgrade your weapons and abilities, which is really helpful, especially once you start battling harder enemies and dealing with boss fights. And you can do this at control points that you'll find throughout the game, and you'll have to cleanse them of the infection of the hiss. And as you do this, you're able to fast travel between those control points, and that's also where you're able to upgrade your character's abilities and whatnot. And yeah. There are also a ton of collectibles in the game that you are able to find. I'm still not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because the good part of that is that there's a lot of lore, there's a lot of things to find, it keeps you interested, but at the same time, it feels like you're constantly running off the path because you see 3 things in one room that you can pick up. So it seems like a little bit much at times, but it also is kind of cool to have all of these collectibles that you're able to find throughout the game. And overall, the combat in the game is really fun to do, especially once you start getting more and more abilities from the objects of power. And it's really smooth as well. There's not many hiccups at all whatsoever. And yeah, it's really good. So that's kind of all I could really share without giving a lot more away. The game is, I want to say it's simple. The gameplay in it is simple. The storyline in it is very complicated, which essentially means that you guys will need to play it in order to actually understand / not understand what's happening, because it is very confusing and you slowly put it together like a puzzle. And so I don't want to give you guys too many free puzzle pieces in order to actually figure out this story. I want you guys to play it for yourselves, or even watch it on YouTube. Speaking of which, I have a YouTube channel that I'll leave in the description. I am doing a walkthrough of the game if you do want to watch it. So yeah. But an overall summary of this game is that the story is really intense, confusing, and overall really good in my opinion. It's just that it can be sometimes bumpy, rough around the edges, that type of thing, and it can cause gaps in interest at times. But overall, amazing story. And also the gameplay is really fun and smooth, especially as you start upgrading yourself with objects of power, abilities, everything like that. Not to mention there are tons and tons of collectibles, which you can take that either as a good thing or a bad thing. So yeah, overall I rate this 9 out of 10. The only thing that's missing from there is really just the gaps of interest in the storyline. Because it is a little rough around the edges, but that is what's going to happen when you're dealing with the paranormal activity, and when this game is mostly centered around the story and not necessarily kind of having a lot of weapons and stuff in the game, or customization options, that type of thing, which isn't bad, obviously, because this is a story-driven game. That is how it's supposed to be, so treat it like that. But besides all of that, you guys can check us out on Instagram or Twitter. We also have a Discord. Once again, you can check out my YouTube channel for the Control playlist of the walkthrough that I'm doing. And I might even do achievement hunting later. I don't know. But yeah, besides all that, game on.